In St. Matthew's Gospel, Jesus spends some time with his disciples, not unlike Steubenville Atlantic weekend. Jesus spends time so that they can really understand what it means to follow him. He takes some time and he goes through many different scenarios so that they can understand what it means to be a disciple, to be a real disciple. And so today in the gospel, we have one of those phrases there that really Jesus summarizes the whole of discipleship. He says, when you have new wine, then you put it not in old wineskins, but in new wineskins. And so the image perhaps is lost with us if we're not into making wine, but the image is important because it means that if we're going to be this new disciple of the Lord, then we have to be put on a different kind of persona in some sense to really be a disciple. And so I'd like to just take a few moments this morning to help us see what does it mean to have a new wineskin? What does it mean to have a new way of living this relationship with Jesus Christ? If we think about our lives, we can kind of divide up our lives into three categories. Sometimes our lives are what we would say the ordinary run-of-the-mill kind of thing that we do day in and day out, trying to stay healthy and trying to be stable and trying to enjoy our friends and trying to be religious, however we understand being religious. And things are kind of normal. In some sense, that's the normal maintenance model of just living our lives. And that's one part of our lives. But there are two other modes of acting or modes of presence or kind of ways of living that we realize can affect us as well. The other aspect of that living our lives could be that sometimes we feel absolutely wonderful. Perhaps you had some moments like that this weekend. We feel absolutely wonderful when we want to reach higher and higher and kind of know God in a deeper way and maybe know the friends that we have in a new way. Perhaps it's a sense of, yeah, I'd like to move in this direction in my life. I'd like to really know Jesus Christ as a real one who is important in my life. We have all those kinds of moments when things seem to be coming together. And it's then we realize this theme of the weekend of the limitless love of God for each one of us. It's that kind of sense of the horizon is way out there and we're reaching out and everything is going well. Now, those kinds of moments happen to us, and in some sense, we're called to experience that once a week when we talk about this day of rest, when we talk about Sunday as a time when we come together to allow God to nourish us and help us to reach out to those things that are very important to us and can make us happy. So that's another kind of moment that we have in our lives. But we also have another moment that is, in some sense, the opposite of that. And sometimes those moments can take up a lot of space and a lot of energy. And it's those moments when we get upset with ourselves, when we experience real hurt in our lives, not unlike that interesting story of the first reading. First reading is about a father named Isaac who wanted to give a blessing to a son, Esau. And instead of that, Esau was tricked out of that blessing by his brother Jacob. And needless to say, Esau was not very happy. And so as a result, Esau felt betrayed. Now, that experience of betrayal can happen in our lives. Maybe we were betrayed by a good friend, and maybe even betrayed by a parent, or maybe betrayed by someone who has been a part of our lives for so long, and then all of a sudden we hear something about the person and we feel betrayed. Or maybe we're hurt because of something happened in our lives. Maybe we're trying to deal with sickness in our lives, sickness in our families, hurt in our families, a broken family. There's all kinds of situations that can get us down. And it's in those moments of our lives then that make up the third kind of category of our lives. And so if we think about our lives, we can divide it up into the normal kind of maintenance mode, going through every day, those moments when there are very happy moments, and other moments when there are very difficult in our lives. And so we can kind of divide up our lives like that. And Jesus' call this morning has to do with how does discipleship fit into each one of those categories of our lives. And so how does his discipleship fit into our ordinary, everyday lives when we're trying to maintain our lives and go about our everyday life, whether it's school or work or whatever we're doing in terms of our living out our ordinary lives? Well, Jesus then, in our gospel, reminds us that he spent time with his disciples, teaching them some values, importance of forgiveness, the importance of being loving toward others, importance of fasting, the importance of being ready to be open to others. All of those kinds of things are ways that Jesus calls us to be a disciple in our ordinary, everyday lives. But what about the other two kinds of lives? If the other two kinds of areas in our lives, we think about those moments when we really feel, everything is going well and all is beautiful and it's a wonderful experience that we have. Perhaps we discover someone and everything seems to be coming together in our lives. We discover a real sense of God. It's in those moments as well that Jesus is present with us, and Jesus invites us a little further, because Jesus wants us to know him in the deepest way possible. But that happens at Mass. That happens also during adoration. Adoration is a real sense of drawing us closer to Jesus, who is present, especially in inviting us to the unlimited love that he has for each one of us. And what about the third area of our lives? Jesus also is present there. And Jesus is not only present when things are difficult in our lives, but he also has given us an example. He says in the Eucharistic prayer today, on the night he was betrayed, Jesus was betrayed. Jesus was betrayed by his closest friends. Jesus suffered. And in the midst of all of that, Jesus went through those moments to give us an example of how we are called to go through those moments, and that he is with us in those moments. And we call that the Paschal mystery. We talk about Jesus dying, and the Lord is present with us in the moments of difficulty in our lives, so that we can go through them with his presence and his support and his strength, and then come out on the other side to rise again so that we can see the new life that the Lord gives us. And all of that is found in this image of becoming new wine in new wineskins. Jesus calls us to be disciples in every moment of our lives. And so as we continue with Mass this morning, let's realize that the Lord really invites every single one of us to look at our lives, look at the way we're experiencing our lives now, and see that he desires to be with us in a very intimate way. And he invites us to that journey of discipleship that continues to deepen our lives as we continue to live out our everyday lives.